The main character in The Machine Stops is a teacher. Her name is Vashti. She mentioned that she needed to give a lecture on the music during the Australian period. Vashti has never been on the surface of the earth and she lives underground, isolated from everybody else. Kuno is Vashti's son. He wants to see his mother face to face. While they're communicating, they use a video call just like we do today. She gave her son just about 5 minutes to speak to her. She was in such a rush. Although she was anxious about traveling and rejected her son's invitation, she eventually left her home to see her son. While she was traveling, according to her, everything was old fashioned. She did not know that a female can be an attendant. In the rising action of the story, Vashti thought she would die on the plane ride. The author gives detailed description of what is seen when looking out of the window of an airplane. They could see buildings and they could see clouds just like we do today. Vashti doesn't even like sunlight touching her face. In part two, I noticed that the machine seems to be her god, just like everybody else in the society of that story. The machine is a god. She was scared to do anything not contemplated by the machine. Kuno got into a plane accident. He was bleeding. He ended up in a hospital, and his friends called him asking him if he had any new ideas. That is weird. The machine, I realize, is a symbol of technology and its advancements. It was made to do what we want, but a time can come where technology can cripple human relations. Unfortunately, some people may be bound to adore it. Part 3 started with the elimination of things that help people breathe. They call those respirators. Another edit to the machine was the restoration of religion. It was recommended to stop the use of airplane. In the story, they call airplanes airships. The airplanes were not discontinued because they could work with the machine's technology. The machine is treated as a god. They say it's omnipotent. They claim that the machine provides them with everything they need to live: food, clothes, and houses. In the climax of the story, the machine stops, just as the title says. There was a defect, but the complaints seemed to be forgotten. After a while, the committee of the mending apparatus did admit that the mending apparatus needed to be fixed. It became harder for people to read. It became harder for people to talk to each other. They hoped to have a working apparatus, but without warning or hint of weakness, it failed everyone. It's like the world was over. The machine emitted a sound when it functioned. Vashti depended on this sound so much. She heard that sound ever since she was born. She thought of it as if it was her very breath. People frantically looked for respirators. They screamed, they prayed. Vashti died to the machine. When I say that, I mean she stopped depending on it. She did not die physically. She stopped depending on the machine. She is to adapt to life without the machine. Kuno taught his mother and everyone else in the story a lesson. Humanity is taught in a lesson in this story. The machine stops. The machine will never start again. A comparison that I found in the story was that airplanes were in use in that society just as we use today. Airplanes in today's time are called airships in the story. I kept in mind the Goodbye Fears monster. There was a moment in the story where Vashti felt lonely after Kuno isolated himself during the video call in part 1. When she generated a light by pressing a button on the machine, that was similar to a child pressing a button on the toy so that their fears can go away. She even caressed her book, just as a child would hold on tightly to a teddy bear when they get anxious. The Internet of Things, like flying cars or vending machines that don't even need money to be put inside of them. In the machine stops, cars fly. Today's present day cars cannot fly yet. Vashti could press a button on a machine and get food to eat and water to drink. Today, we still have to put money inside of a vending machine to get what we want. In listening to part 3 of the audiobook, I remember discussing the Patriot missile that had a defect. Vashti knew the signs of a glitch of the machine. She reported the defect to the committee of the mending apparatus and hoped that others would do the same. Technology professionals are ethically responsible to be sure that lives are not in danger. We are also morally responsible to respond to the needs of populations. It is not good to forget the complaints of consumers. I also thought of the court case, the Software Link in Mortensen versus Timberline Software. The same way that the software company Mortensen knew that the software needed to be improved was the same way that the committee in the machine stops admitted that the mending apparatus needed mending. When a mistake is admitted, the consumers appreciate when companies admit their faults. And they will also appreciate it if the glitch is fixed, if a defect when a defect is fixed. I heard in the audiobook that Vashti could not spare time to see her son. In this story, and some humans today become so dependent on technology that it can be hard to spend time with family. It can be hard to make time for family. It is a challenge. It can be rare in some households to sit at a family dinner table without a phone or a tablet nearby. Vashti mentioned that she didn't have time to spare to fly to see her son Kuno. Technology professionals should not only be helping us to do things quicker and making them easier to do, we should also be pushing users to talk to their friends and family members. It's not that hard. Not listening to people closest to us poses a risk not only to communication skills, but also to their mental health. We weren't born with material things and not even oxygen masks. Items, the Internet of Things, Wi Fi, cars, and toys are not going into the casket with us when we die and are buried.